Good morning, councillors. We are live from River Valley.
Good morning. I'm going to call the October 25th Urban Planning Committee meeting to order. First and foremost, I'll do a land acknowledgement. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, as well as Métis and Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. I know a lot of people are still getting their e-scribe set up, everything set up. It's not going to be a terribly long meeting today, but it is a meeting nonetheless, so I'll do roll call. So I'm Sarah Hamilton, I'm chair. Councillor Paquette, have you been able to join us? It's not, I think he's still getting the meeting link. Councillor Principe.
Good morning.
And Councillor Salvador.
Good morning.
Good morning. And I think we are joined, and I can see this a little bit on the screen. We have Councillor Stevenson present with us in the River Valley room here.
Good morning.
And then Councillor Tang, I could see, and Councillor Wright.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, and Councillor Knack, old school, phoning in.
Good morning.
Good morning. And I don't have access to the meet right now, so there may be other councillors online, and Councillor Paquette has just joined us. Hello, Councillor Paquette. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Councillor Rice is here as well.
Good morning.
Morning. And Councillor Paquette, can you hear us yet? Oh, it's unmuting and not remuting, or it's unmuting and remuting on you. He's going to try again, perhaps. All right, well, we'll maybe get started while he's sorting out his tech. Adoption of the agenda. Anyone want to move adoption of the agenda?
I'll move the adoption of the agenda, the October 25th, 2022 Urban Planning Committee meeting agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of adoption of the agenda?
We have all the votes.
And please display the vote. And that is carried. Approval of the minutes. Anyone wish to move?
I'll move that the September 27, 2022 Urban Planning Committee meeting minutes be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor, please cast your vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried. Protocol items. I received no notice of protocol items today. Selection of items for debate. We have one item on the agenda. Councillor Salvador, do you wish to select that item?
Yes, I was just trying to click on. Please, thank you.
All right, we can make it snappy. All right, thank you. Item 6.1 is selected. There's no other items on the agenda, so we have nothing more to carry on this. So we don't have items to vote on that weren't selected for debate, and we do not have requests to speak today. And we don't have requests for time specific, as we have one item. Councillor inquiries. I didn't receive notice of any forthcoming councillor inquiries, so we will now proceed to item 6.1, and I understand that this was postponed from the last meeting, but no debate or introduction was carried out. So I will go to, it's Councillor Salvador's motion. Councillor Salvador, would you like to make your motion and then provide some introductory remarks?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we got about halfway through an introduction, so I'd be happy to do that. So I'll move that administration provide a report that outlines options and analysis for accelerating the redevelopment of surface parking lots in city center, including the option of phasing out surface parking lots that do not contain a development permit. Yeah, so I'll just briefly introduce by saying, you know, we have a significant number of surface parking lots in our downtown core, many of which do not contain a development permit. And I was made aware of this, oh gosh, a long time ago, back in like 2014, 2015, when there was actually an article in the news about this, and it really caught my eye. And more recently, council actually had a discussion about this at a public hearing not too long ago, where we had a lengthy discussion about surface parking lots just north of Rogers Place and the Ice District. And we were discussing at that public hearing when we would essentially revoke the applicant's permit to operate a surface parking lot, because we know that eventually we want to see surface parking lots phased out of our downtown. And of course, that is the correct way to operate. You're supposed to have a permit in order to operate a parking lot, but I'm concerned that we do continue to have a high number of lots without permits, which are essentially operating as vacant land, even though their property is being used as a revenue generating parking lot. So part of the intention behind this motion is to see what options we have and what tools we have in our tool belt to accelerate the redevelopment of surface parking lots more broadly in Center City, with a specific focus on phasing out lots that do not contain a development permit. And I think this is worthy of investigation for a number of reasons, but it really comes down to creating a vibrant downtown and a safe downtown, and achieving the vision that's outlined in Center City in the city plan. And of course, surface parking lots are not the first thing that comes to mind when we're thinking about a vibrant, walkable, bustling downtown. And I feel quite strongly that the phase out of unpermitted surface parking lots in particular is a part of that conversation. And I would also point to just the financial position we're in as well as a city. I think we need to be looking at how we can get higher and better uses out of underutilized land in our central core. And it doesn't necessarily mean towers on every site, but it does mean actively taking steps towards redevelopment, and again, towards that mixed use mix of mid-rise and high-rise buildings that we'd like to see. And yeah, so again, my hope is that this report will allow us to have that conversation, I will end it there, but happy to take any questions. I do have a few questions myself as well that I just want clarity on, but that's it from me, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Questions on the motion, questions to the mover. I'll go to members of committee. Councillor Principe, I think you had questions last meeting, as I recall.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I'm just trying to get an understanding of the purpose, the intention of this motion. Is it to get rid of all surface parking lots in city centre? Is that the intention of this motion eventually?
No. So like I mentioned, in general, the city does have an intention of seeing higher and better uses in our downtown core, beyond surface parking lots. But one of the focuses of the motion is specifically around unpermitted lots that have been operating without a permit. And even from a fairness perspective, I think it's important to have that conversation. So looking at opportunities to bring those lots into compliance, but also recognizing that beyond surface parking lots, the city of Edmonton does actually have ample supply of parking based on studies that were done as part of the open option parking phase out. So no, the intention is not to get rid of all parking in downtown, absolutely not. And this motion would not do that.
And if I may add, Councillor Principe, this option would just bring committee back some options and analysis. There'd be no decisions made until council would provide us with some direction post this report.
Okay, great, thank you. And then my next question is, so I read surface parking lots that do not contain a development permit. So are we just looking at those that do not contain a development permit?
I'm sorry, is that to me or to administration?
You know what, it doesn't really matter, whoever can answer that.
That is how the motion reads, is that the option of phasing out so we'd provide options for phasing out surface parking lots that do not contain a development permit. But I do think when we reply to this, we'd give committee an overall data, like what's happening in our downtown, what does it look like now, how many parking lots we have, because we have all that information. So we'd probably want to give you some context in addition to the information of what can we do in the situation where there is no development permit.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Principe. Councillor Salvador, do you have questions? Okay, Councillor Salvador, and then Councillor Stevenson.
Oh, thank you. I think you just got to this, Ms. McKay, but just understanding that getting a good lay of the land at downtown will be important. This motion does allow you to come back with data on sort of the number of permitted, unpermitted. Is it possible to even get a map? Is that an option?
We'll do our best to be able to give you as much data as possible to help with the decision making and make the data so that it's easy for you to understand in map format or whatever format's the best for that. So we'll work through that.
Okay, awesome. Really happy to hear that. And just a secondary question, so the way that this motion is worded right now, it would allow you to come back with sort of clear options for how we can take action if council so chooses. Once we get all this data and information, will there be sort of actionable steps? Can you foresee that being included in the report?
Yes, I foresee actionable steps being included in the report, as well as any financial implications associated with any of those steps.
Excellent. That was my next one. Thank you so much. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Councillor Stevenson, you had questions?
Yes, thank you. Just very briefly, I think Ms. McCabe spoke about getting that overall downtown snapshot. And will there be an opportunity, even at maybe a high level, to consider parking availability broadly in the downtown? I guess what I'm just wanting to ensure, I know that for downtown businesses, the availability of parking is really important to ensuring they can attract their customers. My sense, and I think previous data has sort of shown that that very few lots are sort of consistently at 100% capacity, that there is sort of space in our structured or underground parking lots. But will that be able to be shared just so that we can ensure that any action we take on the unpermitted lots isn't creating an undue constraint on the overall supply of parking downtown?
We will provide you with the latest data that we have on that. I cannot promise that that data is really recent. So we'll give you what we have. And you are correct. In the report, we'll also have to address that businesses rely on parking, and they rely on the ability for customers to be able to get parking in their downtown. And there's a perception sometimes, whether that's right or wrong, that it's hard to find parking in the downtown. So we'll have to address that in the report as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think often when I hear about the lack of parking, I think that usually what underlies that is a lack of free parking. So again, maybe wondering at a very high level, again, it may not be possible in the scope of this report, but having a sense of what some of those price points are around the downtown, and if that varies, or is that too much?
I think that's probably too much for this because I don't think we have that data.
Okay, no worries. I appreciate that. And just to clarify too, I think one of the challenges that we have with the parking lots, the current surface parking lots that have no permit, is that many of them are currently gravel. And my understanding is that gravel lots are not really permitted anywhere in the zoning bylaw. So that there's also that sort of aesthetic and quality of development piece there.
And I think we can address that as part of the options in terms of bringing lots into compliance, what that could look like in terms of if we brought them into compliance, perhaps there's no more gravel, or perhaps there's a certain level of lighting. I can't say for sure what the report will say in terms of what bringing a lot into compliance looks like and what the financial implications are associated with that.
Yeah, well, and the challenge is too, if the zone, because I don't believe any of our downtown zones allow surface parking lot in terms of like.
There's some legacy issues here for sure in terms of changes that have occurred in the zoning bylaw over time.
Okay, and just to clarify as well that this will, so Center City would include the quarters as well?
That is the intention.
Great. Okay, thank you. No, really appreciate the mover for moving this forward. I'll speak briefly to it at the appropriate time. Thank you.
If I may add to that question though, I'm not sure we'll have all of the same data for the quarters as we will for downtown. So we'll give you a snapshot of everything we have without taking on additional work to address this motion at this time.
Great, makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Maybe I have one question, which is I feel like we talked about this in another context in like early last term, like 2018, 2019. Councillor Knack would definitely remember, but I can ask him questions. But I thought we talked about it in the context of taxation. And I don't know if anyone remembers that or if there's any sort of historical stuff on that. Ms. McCabe is giving me a look, so.
I have the historical data on the reports on parking. They go back all the way back to 2010. There's about 5 of them. So we've got parking policies on private lands in 2010. We've got status report on non-accessory parking back in 2012. And you're correct, we had some reports in 2020 and 2021 looking at the possible tax tools, and there are limited tax tools is one of the results of that report.
Which is what I recall from that discussion as well. Thank you for jogging my memory. Normally I'd request that you send those out by memo or in an email, which you can, but it might be more fruitful to include those as supplementary links or attachments when this report comes back, because it save you the work twice. So that's all I just wanted to sort of get a sense of what the historical was.
We can address that in the report.
Great, thank you so much. Any other questions, comments? Anyone to speak to this? Councillor Salvador to close? Oh, Councillor Stevenson wishes to speak to it. Okay, sorry.
No, just very briefly, really appreciate Councillor Salvador bringing this motion forward. I think this is, Yeah, an issue that has sort of dogged our downtown for a number of years, and I really support her efforts to provide consistency and fairness across the different properties, while also looking for ways to achieve what we really want to achieve, which is more development, more vitality, and vibrancy in the downtown. So thanks very much to Councillor Salvador for bringing this forward, and I very much look forward to seeing the information when it comes back.
Great. Councillor Salvador, do you wish to close?
Nothing to add, Madam Chair.
All right. Brevity is the soul of efficiency, so thank you. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. And that is carried. So that will come back on June 1st, and hopefully the metered parking doesn't expire before then. So, public reports, we have none. Responses to councillor inquiries, we have none. We have no private reports. Notices of motion or motions without customary notice. Seeing none, then we are adjourned.